So the event came about a couple of months ago when we were talking to a couple of our clients who indicated that they didn't really understand what the new legislation was all about and how it might impact themselves and also how it might impact their clients. So we decided we'd pull together some of the best and brightest minds on the topic to provide an overview of the legislation about what's required and answer all your burning questions. And we're hoping by the end of tonight you'll have a better understanding of the legislation and how it impacts you and your clients.
Earlier this year, the government made an amendment to the Building Act and its related laws, in particular the regulation made under the Building Act, and they've initiated the next wave of the cladding response, which is the private sector audit. I frequently refer to this as a cooperative audit. So the new law imposes a legal obligation on any person who owns a building that meets certain criteria to take part in the audit, but the building owner actually can provide the first response themselves. So the criteria, what you see on screen, government is looking for buildings built or modified after 1 January 1994 through to October of this year. Looking for anything with a Type A or a Type B construction, looking for classes 2 to 9, which is broader than what some states have chosen to check, and looking for buildings 2 to 3 stories and above. The stages in the audit, again this is quite innovative, can be completed in terms of responses to the QBCC by lodging information through a website. That website's also the vehicle to move through the later, more complex stages of the audit. So in the first instance, an owner on their own recognizance can do an inspection of their building, answer the 4 quite simple upfront questions. If they are very confident that they've eliminated the risk of cladding, they can legally print, sign, legally declare that they're done, scan and upload, and away you go. And I've skimmed over the dates, they were on a previous slide. Stage 1, do it yourself, exclude yourself, due by the end of March next year, 29th March next year. Stage 2, I see something, I don't know what it is, or I really don't understand anything about buildings, due by the end of May next year. Stage 3, although it's not explicitly in the Act, we often describe Stage 3 as Stage 3A and Stage 3B. 3A, forming a relationship with a fire engineer if you have a building of interest, due by August next year. 3B, where the fire engineer gives you advice about what you're looking at and what might be an appropriate thing to do with your property, not due until 2021.
But in terms of professional indemnity insurance, the market moved quite swiftly and certainly shut off in June of this year in allowing any coverage for people professionally in relation to cladding. May not want to go into too much detail, so there's blanket exclusions, and there was a bit of hoorah about what that would mean for people like certifiers and others, where there was some legislation or regulation which suggested they had to have insurance policies which were unencumbered by exclusions. If you had just received an exclusion and you were aware that you had maybe worked with some of these type of cladding materials before, it was possible to notify your current policy and crystallise some coverage for yourself or your firm.
There's a whole bunch of buildings around town that have development approvals and building works approvals, and the project team has done the right thing and complied with those approvals. That's not the end of the story for them here in this space. It ordinarily is, but because of the strong policy and community drivers, that's the approach of this legislation. So don't think that I've done the right thing, I've got my approvals, I've spoken to the right government departments, I'm off the hook here. You could still be in for a bumpy road.
As part of the regulations, we have various pathways to exit the process of checking the cladding on a building. And if there is any doubt, of course they have to go to stage 2. And part 2, basically they need to engage a building certifier, fire engineer, an architect, or a builder. And that also provides the opportunity for a building industry professional to review the situation and again provide another exit path. If there is nothing was clear as part of these stage 2, part 1 and part 2, then a fire engineer needs to review the situation.
It's about providing community safety based on our lack of knowledge on applying building products to the facades, really. That's where it came about. Don't be frightened to not do it, because you could have timber panelling on your facade, and the fire engineering around it is quantifiable, and you could probably allow the building to still have timber cladding. It's not necessarily mean that you have to remove all the types of combustible cladding, and that's really the last point.
What percentage of building owners do you think are going to try and avoid any responsibility by lying about what building they have?
The thing is set up as a stat deck, and occasionally when we're in some regional audiences, we'll meet building owners who get quite agitated about that, saying this is a stat deck, to which our answer is yes, precisely. So it would be unwise for someone to say something intentionally false to us.